Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. It's the last day of the week. We're on Friday. It's the second video today. We're going to be looking at Creator Request, which is where a band contacts me and asks me to look at their music specifically. The singer from Autumn's Silence contacted me and said if I would check out The Poisoned Hunt featuring Leah Leash. So that's what we're going to do today. They're described as melodic black metal, and this song, the single, is described as a symphonic black metal single. So, let's jump into this and see what's going on. Yeah, really cool contrasting elements there. Yeah. Interesting thing with the strings back there. The strings went into the 8th note run as well as the bass kick. We have a rhythmic synergy there. Let me bring back this idea from the first section of the song. It's really, the guitars are kind of bleeding into the sound. It's really hard to differentiate them from just kind of a noisy atmosphere. See here, they're a bit more clearer. I think it's interesting that that high-pitched squeal that slides down is in the left side the first time and in the right side the second time. Okay. It's interesting that when the guitar picks up its rhythmic intensity, it's at a time when the drums are at their least rhythmic intense.
To the other side. The final task for this old man has been accomplished. What threats leaves this world?
Yeah, so we finally have the vocal layer in there, and they're actually doing counterpoint. Yeah, very cool. I feel like I'm going to have a tough time with this one because uh, it has a very unique production style, and black metal is not typically my favorite genre. So I'm going to try to come at this um, as unbiased as possible, which is usual for my work, but I do just want to make that clear that I am feeling a bit outside of my depth with this song in particular. So we have three main ideas going on here. We have our like halftime idea, uh, or I guess you could call it the main time. It is the first one we're introduced to. Has the growls on top of it, and the guitar work is more textural. We have the second one that is more of the double time, and we have the clean vocals on it. The guitars are more present, not as textural, more carrying a melody line. And we sort of bounce back and forth between these two concepts until we get to the bridge. And in the bridge, we hit a slight variation where we have more of a rhythmic guitar thing going on. And that leads us into what I think is the final chorus, which is where it's the section where the guitars have a little bit more melodic prominence. And that's pretty much the whole song. It follows a pretty standard ABABCB idea, um, and it works well for what it's doing. Now, there's a lot of things that I really liked about this. I like the contrast between the growls and the cleans. I'm pretty sure the clean vocalist is the featured vocalist, Leah Leash, which means that other Autumn Silence songs probably won't have that vocal contrast. I'm kind of curious where that's going to lead. I don't think it's going to work as well for me, but I figure people who are more black metal purists are going to enjoy the constant harsh vocals rather than bouncing back and forth between harshes and cleans. Unless, of course, the vocalist has a surprise clean male vocal, because they did do the that talking bit in the middle. So I suppose there's a chance they could also surprise me with some clean male vocals as well and provide contrast with just the single vocalist. I really like some of the melodic things going on here. The violin part, I think, works very well in contrast to the guitar parts. They tend to uh, pass back and forth the melodic um, task, where if the strings are playing melody, the guitars are more textural, and if the strings are not as present, or maybe they're playing, chords, then the guitars get the melody. And I think that's a smart way to do it without having to enter into uh, strong elements of counter melody or dual melody aspects. Um, Although, even in the chorus, you could probably argue that the guitar line and the clean vocals are doing counter melody. But having a third layer of melody, especially there, bringing or keeping the strings on melody task while also having your guitar and your vocalist doing melody, it can get cluttered. So it's probably safer, depending on their experience, composing multiple melody lines, just to do the two or to just have those instruments trade off throughout the song. The drums I enjoyed as a strong center to the band. They provided a fairly similar rhythmic pattern. The digga 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 dun dun, digga 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 dun dun, and you get that nice sort of lethargic element at the end of that run. That delayed ending, where we see the rhythmic part of the first half of the bar gets slowed down for the second is something that's prevalent through the entire song. I believe almost every time I checked out the drums, they were doing that in the bass kick. And I think it's interesting to have that sort of motif, that rhythmic motif showing up through the entire song. And then, of course, at the end, we finally layered the vocals, and I was waiting for that the whole time. I honestly didn't think it was going to happen, but we got a nice variation on the final chorus. We got a B prime element. If we're going back to the A, B, A, B, C, B, that final B has a variation. We put a little tick mark next to it, call it B prime. Uh, and yes, I've advocated for that before. I absolutely love it. If you're going to bring your chorus back for a third time, we've already heard it so many times, change it up a little bit. You don't need to make a completely new section for it, but add something. Cut the time signature, no, not the time, cut the tempo in half, or add another melody line. Do something. I've already heard this twice. I understand the idea of having a strong hook and continuously playing it because it's supposed to be the part that gets stuck in your listener's head and makes them want to come back. But I greatly enjoy final choruses that change something up. And this was no different. Not only did we have both of the vocalists coming in at the same time, they were doing different things. So there was a little bit of a counterpoint there, mostly on the rhythmic level, because I wouldn't say that the growls are pitched in a similar way to something like clean vocals, but there was a nice rhythmic syncopation going on between the two vocal lines. So yes, there's a really strong foundation for a lot of ideas going on here, and I think the band, like I said, has a really strong foundation moving forward. I don't know if this is their debut album or not. If I go to their Bandcamp, so this is their second album. This might have been an EP. I don't know. Okay, so they do have experience making an album. This is their second one, it looks like, and this is a single. It looks like their first single after their first album. So yeah, I'd say they have a really strong foundation going forward. And I think if you enjoy black metal, you should probably keep an eye on this group. Some things that I do have a small issue with, and I want to preface for moving into this, this is all my bias. I'm not saying any of this is the right way it should have been done or that any of these changes should be made. It's just some feedback. And if the band agrees with any of it and want to change things, then that is completely on them. If they dismiss everything I say and believe I don't know what I'm talking about, that is fine too. Like I mentioned, I'm a bit out of my element with what this song is doing anyways. So definitely whatever I say, take with a grain of salt. The production is interesting to me. I haven't listened to a lot of black metal. The community's definitely kept me up and up on a bit of things here and there, and I'm starting to come around to some of the ideas in black metal, but I don't think I've heard anything quite like this. This is definitely seems to be going for a bit of that lo-fi black metal aesthetic. We checked out some of that during Lo-Fi Week. It's I don't want to comment too much on that in particular. It's an artistic taste, and the band enjoys it. There's fans of lo-fi black metal. It's not necessarily my cup of tea, so I don't want to touch on that too much. But I do want to look at the EQ, which I think is interesting on this track. There is a lot of treble in here, and obviously I'm going to say it's intentional. I'm fairly sure if I look back on their first album, the mix is going to be fairly similar. To me, it's an interesting choice. It drowns out a lot of the heavier aspect and makes the song sound top heavy, and it kind of gives it this feeling of lacking. And some of that lacking might come from the lo-fi element anyways. My brain are going to be looking for more of a full production to begin with. So the lo-fi element is already going to make me feel like there's something lacking. But the lack of bassiness in the song compounds on that. And of course, this could all be completely intentional. but I found it to be a bit distracting, I would say, especially in the first minute or so as I was acclimating to the sound. But of course, once I acclimated, I became used to listening to it like that, and it wasn't as distracting, but I still feel like to my ears, it would sound better with a little bit more oomph in the lower end of the EQ. But again, as I've mentioned before, whenever I talk about criticisms or changes that I would make, it does change the sound of the song. And if it's not what the group, what Autumn Silence intends for their sound to be, do not make these changes. If this sound is exactly what you want, stick with it. The other thing that I thought was interesting was the strings. When they are, I think it was the first time the strings came in, when they came in with the eighth note run that was rhythmically synchronized with the bass kicks. The strings seem to be behind the bass kicks, and my guess for that is that they have a bit of a swell into their highest point. So they're the main attack of the sample, I think it's a sample. The main attack of the sample is just a hair past when the actual sample begins, when the sound begins. Um, so it makes it sound like, because they are a bit drowned out, they're a bit pushed into the background. You don't really hear the swell into it. You just kind of hear that high point, and it sounds just a hair behind the drums, and it creates this uh, rhythmic. I don't want to say syncopation because it's not perfectly played against the bass kick. It is just slightly behind it, and it creates some rhythmic dissonance there. Again, if it's intentional, don't don't change anything. But I just found it to be a little, again, distracting to hear this fast eighth note run, but for to just consistently be behind the bass kick just ever so slightly, where it sounds like it's delayed, where it's played behind, it feels like it's dragging, which is probably not the intent given the speed of the line. Dragging goes completely against what the rhythmic elements are doing and the tempo is doing at that point. But yeah, it definitely caught my attention. And then the guitar mixing. I mentioned that during the choruses, the guitar has the melody and it's very present. It feels very close to me, even as far as soundstage goes. But in the verses, when it's kind of doing a textural thing, I really, really, really have to listen in for that distortion. I can't even really hear the guitar tone itself. I have to listen to the distortion that the guitar tone um, is being converted into. And it's, to me, it's very hidden behind the strings and the vocals, especially the vocals are distorted. They're the harshes, so we have a little bit of distortion on top of that, and it's just kind of blending together. And I don't really feel like the guitars have much presence there at all. But again, a lot of that's production concerns, which could just be the sound the band's going for. I'm out of my element with this type of music and this type of production already, so it could be that what I'm asking for would change the song into something that the band doesn't want it to be. But those are my thoughts on Autumn Silence's The Poisoned Hunt. This is where you guys come in, though. Hit me up in the comments. Let me know if you enjoyed this or not. Anything that stuck out to you. Let me know if you agree with me on any of the production stuff, or if you think I'm completely wrong and this song sounds beautiful and you wouldn't want them to change a thing in the mixing and mastering aspect. And of course, if you're the band and you want to shed some context, some light on this song or some of the choices, please, I'm all ears. I'm always open to learn about things, especially something that I feel I don't have a lot of experience in, even if I don't necessarily come around to the sound. Just kind of knowing that it is what you intended and kind of how you came to the decisions you did opens my mind a little bit more than it is. When you're done commenting, you can head up to the description box, and in there is a link for Linktree. It takes you to this menu with everything related to the channel, such as Discord, Twitter, Patreon, email. If you are a band and you want me to check out your music, go ahead and shoot me an email. All right? When you're done with that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. All three things help out the channel immensely. I won't be back tomorrow, it is the weekend, but I will be back on Monday, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 10 p.m. UTC, as usual. It'll be our 100th week. It's another milestone. I'm real excited about it, and I thank everybody for helping me get here. All right, until next time, remember to be critical but not cynical of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening whenever you choose to watch my videos.